What's up, Rune Slayer players? Today, we're diving into the ultimate Rune Slayer class tier list Roblox, where we rank every class from best to worst so you know exactly which one to use. Whether you're grinding through clearing dungeons, or dominating PvP, picking the right class is the key to success. Some classes are absolute powerhouses, while others might hold you back, but don't worry, because by the end of this video, you'll know exactly which class fits your playstyle best. Rune Slayer class tier list Roblox. You've probably seen players destroying enemies with ease while others struggle, and that's because not all classes are created equal. Some have insane damage, some have amazing survivability, and others might just be straight up broken in the current meta. In this tier list, we're going over everything of their strengths, weaknesses, and how they perform in both PvP and PvP. If you're serious about improving in Rune Slayer, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe. Not only does it help support the channel, but it also keeps you updated with the latest tier lists, guides, and strategies to stay ahead of the competition. Plus, if this video gets enough support, I'll be doing deep dive guides on each class, showing you how to master them and unlock their full potential. So, which class is the strongest in Rune Slayer right now? Which ones should you avoid? Let's jump right into the Rune Slayer class tier list Roblox and find out. Alright, let's talk about the B tier classes in Rune Slayer: Thief, Warrior, and Magician. These classes aren't necessarily bad, but compared to the top tier picks, they have some weaknesses that hold them back. If you're thinking about using one of these classes, you need to understand both their strengths and limitations so you can make them work for you. Thief. Starting with Thief, this class is all about speed and agility. It specializes in close range combat using daggers, and it has some of the fastest attack chains in the game. In PvP, this mobility gives Thief an edge against slower opponents, letting you get in, deal damage, and escape before they can react. The burst potential of Thief is also one of the best when it comes to single target damage. Yeah, you can dish out a ton of damage in a short window. But here's the problem: Thief is really squishy. It lacks solid defensive stats, and if you get caught in a combo, you're pretty much done. This becomes a huge issue because bosses and mobs hit hard, and Thief doesn't have the sustain to survive long fights. If you're playing Thief, you have to be constantly moving, dodging, and making sure you don't take unnecessary hits. It's a high risk, high reward class, and that's why it sits in B tier instead of higher. Warrior. Next up, we've got Warrior. This class is supposed to be a balance between tankiness and DPS, but unfortunately, it doesn't excel in either category. Compared to something like Priest, Warrior just doesn't have the same level of survivability, and when it comes to damage, it falls behind Thief and Striker. In theory, Warrior should be a great choice. Yeah, it has solid melee abilities and can take a few hits better than a Thief. However, its biggest weakness is that it doesn't do enough damage to justify picking it over other melee options. If you're in PvP, you'll struggle against ranged classes like Archer and Magician, because they can keep their distance while chipping away at your health. And in you don't bring enough utility or damage to be considered top tier. That being said, Warrior isn't useless. If you enjoy a more balanced playstyle and don't want to commit to a glass cannon class like Thief, you can still make Warrior work. But if you're looking for a top tier melee class, Striker or Priest are just better choices right now. Magician. Last but not least, we have Magician, which is the weakest of the ranged classes. Magician is designed to deal damage from a distance while applying buffs and debuffs, making it a more strategic option compared to something like Archer, which focuses purely on DPS. The issue with Magician is that its damage output is underwhelming, especially in PvP. You need time to set up your attacks, and in a fast-paced game like Rune Slayer, that can be a huge problem. If enemies close the gap on you, you don't have many options to escape. Compared to Archer, which has high burst damage and sustained DPS, Magician feels weaker overall. Magician has some usefulness since buffs and debuffs can help in longer fights, but the reality is that other classes can clear content way faster. If you're choosing a ranged class, Archer is just the better option right now. Final thoughts on B tier classes. So overall, Thief, Warrior, and Magician all have their uses, but they each have flaws that keep them out of the top tier. Thief is great for fast and aggressive play but lacks survivability. Warrior tries to balance offense and defense but doesn't shine in either category. Magician has some utility, but its damage output and survivability make it one of the weaker choices. If you're set on playing one of these classes, you can definitely make them work, but just know that you'll have to put in extra effort compared to the stronger classes like Priest, Striker, and Archer. Now, let's move on to the A-tier classes in Rune Slayer: Striker and Archer. These two are some of the strongest picks in the game, just a step below the S tier. They have solid strengths that make them powerful in both PvP and PvP, but they aren't completely broken like Priest. If you're looking for a well-rounded, strong class that doesn't require insane skill to master, these are great choices. Striker. First up, we have Striker, a melee class that fights using its fists. This class is all about close-range combat, and it's one of the easiest to pick up and play. If you like fast-paced melee action with strong combo potential, Striker is a solid choice. One of Striker's biggest advantages is its easy to chain attacks. In both PvP and PvP, being able to land consistent hits is super important, and Striker makes that easy. It has a great mix of damage and speed, meaning you can take down enemies quickly if you keep up the pressure. In PvP, Striker performs well because of its straightforward playstyle. It doesn't have complicated mechanics or setup, so you just get in, land your combos, and take down enemies. It's not as tanky as Priest or even Warrior, but its raw damage output makes up for it. In PvP, Striker is also a strong pick because of how well it can pressure opponents. If you catch someone in a combo, you can keep the momentum going and make it hard for them to escape. However, Striker does have a downside: it lacks defensive stats. If you get caught in a counterattack or mistime your abilities, you can get punished hard. Overall, Striker is one of the best melee classes, strong, fast, and easy to use. The only reason it's in A tier instead of S tier is because it lacks defensive capabilities, meaning you have to be careful when fighting stronger enemies. Archer. Next up, we have Archer, the best ranged DPS class in Rune Slayer. If you prefer keeping your distance while dealing consistent damage, Archer is a top tier pick. In PvP, Archer is amazing because of its high sustained DPS. Unlike Magician, which focuses on buffs and debuffs, Archer is all about raw damage. You can keep up a steady stream of attacks, dealing heavy damage while staying out of danger. This makes Archer one of the best classes for clearing dungeons and farming enemies quickly. In PvP, Archer is still strong, but it does have one big weakness: melee classes can close the gap quickly. If a striker or thief gets too close, you're in trouble. However, skilled Archer players can use kiting strategies to keep their distance, making it hard for melee opponents to land their attacks. The only reason Archer isn't S tier is because it struggles in PvP when enemies get too close. It doesn't have many escape tools, so if you get caught, you're probably going to lose the fight. But as long as you play smart and keep your distance, Archer can dominate in both PvP and PvP. Final thoughts on A tier classes: both Striker and Archer are fantastic choices, and they come close to being S tier. Striker has fast, powerful melee combos, but it lacks defensive stats. Archer has insane ranged DPS, but it struggles against fast melee opponents. If you want a melee class with strong, consistent combos, Striker is the way to go. If you want a ranged powerhouse that shreds enemies from a distance, Archer is your best bet. These classes are just a step below Priest, but they are still some of the strongest picks in Rune Slayer. If you're using one of these classes, you can definitely hold your own in both PvP and PvP. Let me know in the comments which class you think is the best in A tier. Before we get into the S tier class, make sure to like and subscribe if you're enjoying the video. It really helps out the channel and lets me keep making Rune Slayer guides, tier lists, and strategies to keep you ahead of the competition. Plus, if we hit a certain number of likes, I'll make an in-depth guide on the best class in the game, showing you exactly how to master it. Alright, now let's talk about the S tier class that dominates Rune Slayer. Now, let's talk about the S tier class in Rune Slayer, the one that stands above the rest of Priest. This class isn't just strong, it's game-changing. If you're looking for the best class in the game, Priest is the undisputed top pick for both PvP and PvP. Priest are the ultimate S tier class. Priest is insanely strong because it has everything you could ask for: high survivability, strong support abilities, and great damage output. While most people think of healers as weak, that's not the case here. Priest is a hybrid class, meaning it can heal, tank, and still deal solid damage, making it one of the most versatile picks in Rune Slayer. Priest is by far the best class. The biggest reason is self-sustainability. While other classes have to rely on potions or careful dodging, Priest can heal itself and its teammates. This makes it one of the best choices for dungeons and boss fights, where staying alive is just as important as dealing damage. Priest also has strong AoE abilities, meaning it can clear groups of enemies quickly while keeping itself healthy. It might not have the raw DPS of Archer or Striker, but because it cannot last enemies in long fights, it actually ends up being one of the most efficient classes for Priest in PvP. In PvP, Priest is a nightmare to deal with. While other classes have to worry about taking damage, Priest can just heal through most attacks, making it extremely hard to take down. It also has great crowd control abilities, meaning it can stun, slow, or debuff enemies while keeping itself alive. One of the most annoying things about fighting a Priest is that even if you land a full combo, they can just heal it back up. This makes fighting them frustrating, especially for classes like Thief or Striker, which rely on burst damage. If you can't finish a Priest quickly, you're probably going to lose the fight. The only real weakness of Priest is that it doesn't have the highest burst damage, meaning fights can take longer. But because of its healing, tankiness, and control abilities, it almost never loses a fight unless it's up against multiple opponents. Why Priest is the only S tier class? There's a reason Priest is the only S tier class in this tier list. While Archer, Striker, and other A tier classes are strong, Priest is on a completely different level. It doesn't just survive fights, it controls them. It doesn't just deal damage, it outlasts enemies. Whether you're playing solo, in a team, or PvP, Priest is the safest and most effective choice in the entire game. If you're looking for the strongest class in Rune Slayer, this is it. Let me know in the comments if you agree that Priest is S tier, or if you think another class deserves to be up here too. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more Rune Slayer content, tier lists, and guides. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.